Good day viewers, welcome to another edition of the Daily Strange Stories. I'm John Brown. As we approach the end of the work week, I hope you're feeling energized and ready to finish strong. Our lead story for today. Killed and dumped in Hennops River over Operation Vala Umgodi, General Mkhwanazi helped us know what happened. Killed and dumped in Hennops River over Operation Vala Umgodi. That is the hard claim many people are now making, and they point to a growing list of details that are not lining up. At the center of this story are three young constables from the South African Police Service, Cebekhulu Linda, aged 24, Boipelo Senoge, aged 20, and Keamogetswe Buys, aged 30. They disappeared on the 23rd of April 2025, on their way from Bloemfontein to Limpopo, assigned to Operation Vala Umgodi. 6 days later, their bodies were found in the Hennops River in Centurion, in Tshwane. Two other bodies were also pulled from the same river that same week. A white VW Polo linked to the three constables was recovered from the river on the 1st of May. In the days that followed, officials suggested a tragic accident in bad weather. Families and many members of the public did not accept that conclusion, because the facts they are seeing do not feel complete. Then another development changed the tone of the national conversation. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, who leads the National Political Killings Task Team, disclosed that dozens of police members have been arrested in cases linked to assassinations, conspiracies, and gun links proven by forensics. He also described a fight inside the police over who controls sensitive dockets. To many people, that briefing did not feel distant or unrelated. It felt like a missing piece. It helped them understand how something dark could happen to police members on duty for a major operation, and how a crash story could be used to cloud the truth. Here is what can be said with certainty about the timeline. On the 23rd of April, the three constables left Bloemfontein in a white VW Polo. They were headed to Limpopo, on deployment for Operation Vala Umgodi. Constable Linda worked in the Security Intelligence Unit. Constable Buys worked in the Cybercrime Unit. Constable Senoge worked at Park Road Police Station in Bloemfontein and was traveling with her boyfriend, Constable Linda. The couple was planning a future together. According to colleagues and family accounts relayed by the media, she was close to her 25th birthday, and Cebekhulu had been preparing for lobola. Buys had been planning an August wedding and was raising a young child with her partner, Lwazidiba. Their trip was ordinary in plan and urgent in purpose. They were part of a national push to disrupt illegal mining networks that drain resources and endanger communities. Signals from their phones and the vehicle tracker gave a narrow window for investigators. The CSR tracker linked to their movement was last detected near the Shell Ultra City in Midrand. Phone activity for all three also vanished in that vicinity. Cameras later placed them near the Bloemfontein interchange, heading north toward the N1. After that, the trail faded. A high-level team spread across three provinces, checking toll routes from the Grasmere Plaza on the N1, scanning the stretch past the Buckliach interchange, and following the route to John Vorster Drive in Centurion. Drone teams, divers, and road patrols joined the search. Tow operators and shift patrol units that usually swarm to major incidents on that corridor did not report a crash. Fuel stations nearby operate 24 hours, with staff who usually see or hear unusual events. None of this produced a clean, simple answer. The first breakthrough did not come from cameras or phone logs. It came from a call to Gauteng EMS about a body near the Hennops River. EMS personnel arrived to recover remains found close to the water. They believed they were dealing with a single tragedy, unrelated to the missing constables. Then another call came, and another body was located on the river bank. SAP search teams and the City of Tshwane rescue unit joined in. As the day unfolded, the sense of what was happening changed. One of the bodies was identified as Constable Cebekhulu Linda. The team understood at once that the river might hold more. Later that day, they found Constable Boipelo Senoge. Rescuers recalled details that stayed in their minds, like a pink watch still on her wrist. The next day, they found Constable Keamogetswe Buys. That week, teams recovered two additional bodies from the same river. One was a staff member attached to the Littleton police station, described in some reports as a groundsman and in others as an admin worker. Another was an unidentified person, with an early note from the scene indicating a white person. Police at the time said that person had likely been in the water for around 2 weeks and was not linked to the constable's case.
We are still investigating. We are still tracing.
Let's suppose that the accident happened on Thursday morning. Today is Tuesday. We have found the bodies, but we have not found the car. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, for us, yes, we can't exclude anything. It's a bit strange, but we are looking. We are investigating and looking for the vehicle. In fact, we found other 2 vehicles here downstream.
And that's where my next question comes. Isn't it strange that all of a sudden there's vehicles being found here and you are finding bodies in here? Isn't that strange? I mean, I'm just asking for...
Well, I can't say it's strange because this road, when it rains, normally there will be water. And if you don't know it and you drive with speed, you can easily lose control.
It is with deep sorrow that I confirm that our 3 members have been found together with 2 other bodies. As I said yesterday, we found 2 bodies, and then because it was dark, we had to abandon the search and proceed today. And this morning we found the 3rd body, which was discovered, which believed to be that of Constable Linda. We further found a decomposed body, which we are still trying to identify. We don't know who this person is. And later this afternoon, we certainly found the 5th body, which was confirmed to be that of Constable Buys. Our subs and Tshwane divers immediately commenced with the search. There we discovered 2 bodies. One was that of a driver of the Renault panel van, who it just came to light that it is one of our employees attached to Littleton Police.
In total, 5 bodies came out of the Hennops in that operation. Finding the car took more work. The Hennops River can run fast and carry heavy debris after rain. Rescuers had to cut through strainers, logs, and branches with chainsaws to reduce the flow and expose objects trapped below. They worked their way back to the suspected entry point. Only then did divers locate the white VW Polo. Debris from the vehicle, including both bumpers, had been found earlier downstream together with a police reflector jacket later linked to Constable Linda. When the car was raised, people saw the extent of the damage. Pictures circulated and new questions began. Senior officials gave early guidance to calm intense speculation. National Police Commissioner General Fanny Masemola said the car appeared to have capsized before it hit the side barrier and then went into the water. He said there were injuries, but there were no signs like gunshot trauma on site, and full autopsies and forensics needed to conclude the causes.
What a painful relief, however, but at least we are quite happy that after hard work we can indeed say the car has been recovered, and actually not far from where we suspected the car went through. I'm sure every one of you can see the condition of the car. We are going to undertake an investigation of the car so that we can come to a conclusion as to what exactly happened. But from I think the look of eyes, when you can see that the car looks like it capsized first before it impacted on the wall, including the barrier on the side, and then eventually went into the water.
He also said accident reconstruction was being done by the SAP's Vehicle Accident Unit, with engineers examining the car. He explained that, at that moment, the case looked like an accident and police were investigating culpable homicide, which is standard for fatal road incidents. Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection Lieutenant General Shadrach Sibia later said foul play had been ruled out. He cited poor weather and speed as the most likely drivers of the crash. His message was clear: conspiracy stories were not supported by the evidence he had seen.
We do have evidence that shows that they traveled late from Bloemfontein and they were driving very fast. It was raining. One cannot say at this point in time up until the people who reconstructed the scene of accident and the expert actually clearly explain in a form of a report and say this is what we see or what we think might have happened from the expert point of view. But what we know is that, remember, at some point mention was made of a particular bakkie that was following them, NP 200. And the driver clearly, after we traced him, he says, no, these people were driving very fast. They drove past me. I also drove past them at some point. As they drove into the garage, they detoured into a garage. I followed so that I can see who's there. And I realized that, no, it is two ladies and a gentleman, so there was no harm. He drove and he left. So there is proof or evidence that they were driving fast and it was raining. And so far, there's nothing really sinister in losing control, because it happens on a daily basis. Not that we are downplaying what happened, but there is no, we don't suspect anything, any foul play so far.
The problem is that many of the facts known to the public are not matching that comfort.
We still have questions. What happened to the car? And that, the biggest question is, what took the police so long to find our car? There is a car that is said to have been there from Saturday, and Monday it was found, because they said the river was high and the water was, whatever story they are coming up with. What took them so long to find ours?
The Linda family, represented by father and spokesperson Cebekhulu Linda, expressed strong love and respect for Cebekhulu and described him as a careful driver. They said early reports from authorities raised hijacking and kidnapping as possibilities, and then the story shifted to an accident. They said they believed an accident may have happened, but they still wanted to understand the cause.
Yes, we still have questions. We have questions because at first this was reported as a hijacking or kidnapping. Then we were told, no, it was an accident. And the way the accident happened, we believe it was an accident. But what led to the accident? That's what we want to know. What led to the accident? Because knowing my son, he was very careful. I mean, he wouldn't drive from Bloemfontein to the scene if he was negligent, And why was he driving on the far left? And then there were questions, or there was talk about the car capsizing before it landed into the river. What led to that? And if the car capsized, I mean, somebody must have seen it, So we still have questions, but for now, we are allowing ourselves time to grieve and lay them to rest. And then we'll await the police to come to us and give us a full report. Then we still have questions, to the police as to exactly what happened, what led to the accident.
A precise question came from them: why would he be in the far left lane at that time and place? That lane detail matters if the entry point into the river needs a sharp turn or a mist barrier. More questions came from officers who know that road and from members of the public who studied photos of the barrier and the car. Some asked why there was limited visible impact on the barrier or bridge. Others asked how 3 people could leave the car if seatbelts had been worn. People who drive modern Polos offered their own knowledge. They said a Polo of recent years may include sensors around the body, emergency braking features, and systems that reduce speed in heavy rain. They said the car can prompt seatbelt use, detect drowsiness, and even intervene to steady the vehicle. They said a bonnet should not flatten that way in water unless there is a certain type of impact. They ended by saying they stood to be corrected, but they could not accept the simple version of events. These claims are public opinion and are not formal forensic findings. They do, however, reflect how ordinary people judge what they see. There were also questions from within the security cluster, reported anonymously. One officer who patrols those corridors asked why no calls about a crash came from a stretch known for constant tow trucks and traffic policing, and why a 24-hour fuel station nearby had no notice of a major incident. That officer even raised a fear that the car could have been placed in the river later to change the story. Again, this is not an official conclusion. It shows the level of doubt even among trained police officers. the setting makes the doubt stronger. Operation Vala Umgodi is not a routine assignment. It targets illegal mining networks that reach across provinces, involve high cash flows, and create incentives for bribes, extortion, and protection deals. Disused shafts, open tailings, and old tunnels still hold value, and many people in poor conditions go underground to extract what they can. Buyers and refiners exploit this by paying low prices and then laundering the gold. Street-level corruption is often described in detail: patrols that accept payments to look away, tip-offs sold to syndicate handlers ahead of raids, and seized or that finds its way back into the market. There are also claims, sometimes backed by court records, suggesting that some senior figures can be involved, even if indirectly, by redirecting pressure away from financiers and onto the lowest-level diggers. When global gold prices rise, the whole machine speeds up. When raids hit one place, work resumes in another. This cat-and-mouse cycle makes genuine enforcement difficult and creates many places where honest officers become targets. Against this backdrop, the names that emerged at the memorials remind people that these constables were not statistics. In Bloemfontein, a hall in Bobberspark held colleagues, correctional officials, and government leaders. Their commander from the intelligence department, Brigadier SP Gupega, described their strengths and how they served. Free State Premier Mkhwanazi appealed for respect for the families, and she warned against harmful rumors that could complicate the search for truth. Deputy Police Minister Polly Boshilo attended the funerals and addressed speculation linking the deaths to mafia-style groups tied to mining. She dismissed that theory at the time and said SAPS protects its members. The Free State government worked with the families on arrangements. Over 3 days, each constable was laid to rest. Senoge's funeral took place on Thursday, the 8th of May, at St. Peter's Anglican Church in Rocklands, with burial at South Park. Linda's funeral took place on Friday at St. Rose Catholic Church in Botshabela, with burial at Makengenene. Buys was honored on Saturday at the Grassland Hall and buried at Tabanghu. In the Security Intelligence Unit and in cybercrime, she and Linda had been valued for their skills. Their loved ones spoke of their drive and the futures they were building. The grief at these services did not quiet the main question. It made it sharper. The official investigation is being done, if ever it was indeed launched, but the wait has been long. General Fanny Masemola confirmed in May that a full reconstruction is being done. The Vehicle Accident Unit was said to be working with forensic experts and engineers to build a clear sequence. Vehicle parts and clothing were logged. Postmortems were reportedly performed. Masemola also said that, at the scene, nothing obvious suggested an attack like gunfire, but only the final forensic results would draw lines that cannot be crossed. Even so, over 3 months later, the public has not been given a full written report that explains how the VW Polo entered the river, why the bodies were found where they were, and how the timeline aligns with GPS and phone logs. When an event is this high profile, the silence itself becomes a part of the story. This is where General Mkhwanazi's national briefing changed minds. He laid out numbers that are not small. Since 2018, the Political Killings Task Team has been working on hundreds of dockets, covering murders, attempted murders, intimidation, and conspiracies. The team has arrested hundreds of suspects.
Since the establishment of this Political Killings Task Team in July 2018, the team has been investigating a total of 612 case dockets. These case dockets include murders, attempted murders, intimidation, conspiracy to commit murders, and other cases. A total of 436 suspects were arrested and charged. 156 firearms were recovered, of which 55 of them were linked directly ballistically through our forensic testing to the political related cases. An additional 35 suspects who are members of the South African Police Service were arrested. The notable one is the one who's now in prison, who's been working with the parliamentarian who was involved in the murder, about the murder of one Siniso Magagro. We're going to talk about that later.
A large number of firearms have been recovered, and dozens have been ballistically linked to political cases. He explained that dozens of SAPS members have also been arrested as suspects in these cases. He spoke of a former detective from Johannesburg, Michael Puletau, now in custody at Gosimampuru prison, accused of being part of a hit team together with Musa Gegana and Tleko Floyd Mabusela. He said more charges were being added. He described a wider network that included controversial businessmen like Katiso Molefe and Vusimusi, Kat, Matlala, both arrested and facing court processes. General Mkhwanazi said something that echoed into the Hennops story. He said the task team's dockets had been taken away in March on instructions that aimed to disband the team, and that a senior figure, Lieutenant General Shadrach Sibiya, carried out those instructions from then-Minister Senzo Mchunu without the National Commissioner's authority. He said some dockets already had arrest instructions, but progress stopped once the files were removed. After that briefing, the President suspended the minister and formed a commission of inquiry. General Masemola suspended Sibiya. These decisions showed the public that there is a deep fight inside the state over who investigates who. For people who already suspected a cover-up in the Hennops case, this was not proof, but it showed how such a cover-up, in theory, could happen. Not everyone agrees with that link. Lieutenant General Sibiya has taken a firm line on the Hennops case and has publicly said the evidence points to an accident caused by weather and speed. At the time, he also handled some media updates from the riverbank, where he emphasized the scale of the search and the fact that not all bodies in the water were connected to the constables. General Masemola, on the other hand, kept saying that police cannot rule out anything until forensics are complete, but that the scene assessment supports an accident. Deputy Minister Boshilo warned against speculating about syndicates being behind the constables' deaths. Free State leaders asked social media users to respect the families and stop sharing untested claims. These calls are important. Families do not need more pain. But even some family members have said they are not satisfied yet with the explanations they have heard. They are asking for a full picture. There are technical puzzles that also need answers. If the car broke through a barrier or entered at speed, there should be marks, paint transfer, or clear physical evidence on the bridge structure or the verge. If it rolled into the water from a nearby point, rescuers would expect certain damage patterns. Some people studying the car's condition on recovery have pointed to a bonnet that appears flattened in a way they say water alone would not cause, though only engineers can prove such a claim. Others have insisted that a Polo with modern safety features would slow itself when its systems detect rain or a possible obstacle, and they use this to question the speed theory. It is also true that safety features vary by model and year. Options like automatic braking, lane assist, or driver fatigue alerts may not be present or may be switched off. The police investigation has access to the VIN and the exact build sheet, so it can confirm which systems the car had. Event data recorders in many modern cars can store short bursts of speed, braking, and steering data before a crash, and that could fill in important blanks if the unit remained functional. This is the kind of detail that can settle arguments. The wider climate around SAPS also feeds people's doubts. In a separate matter, 4 officers were arrested early this year for helping an illegal mining kingpin, James Tiger Choili, to escape custody. He has not yet been found since then. In January 2025, James Neo Choili, a Lesotho national known as Tiger and a suspected Zamazama boss of illegal gold mining, resurfaced from a disused South African mine during a rescue operation where dozens of miners died. Choili, allegedly responsible for deaths, assault, and torture within the mine, was among those rescued but evaded booking by the police. An investigation is underway to determine who aided his escape, which the acting police commissioner called an embarrassment. The Bloemfontein gold mine, where nearly 2,000 miners were working illegally, saw 87 deaths, some attributed to starvation and dehydration after police cut off food supplies. Illegal mining is common in South Africa's abandoned mines, with miners, commonly known as Zamazamas, often staying underground for months. Operation Vala Umgodi has recorded more than 18,000 arrests, but the core organizing networks still adapt and hide. People see arrests at the bottom and fewer at the top. They hear of police members charged in assassination plots. They hear of case files being pulled from specialized teams. They hear of men like the 3 alleged hitmen now in custody. They weigh these facts against a scene where 3 young constables vanish, 2 phones go dark near Midrand, a VW Polo turns up deep in a river, and 5 bodies in total are pulled from the same water within days. They ask if a syndicate uses the Hennops as a dumping ground, because a 5th body remains unidentified and the staff member from Littleton appears unrelated to the constables. They ask why such a cluster would occur by accident in 1 week. One more strand ties back to General Mkhwanazi. In his briefing, he said 5 dockets had arrest instructions ready when they were pulled. He said the files then sat without visible progress. He said businessmen with underworld links had been arrested and were in custody, but would in some cases be granted bail under controversial circumstances, as the case with Getiso Molefe, who was freed by Deputy Pretoria High Court Judge President, Justice Aubrey Ledwaba. Mkhwanazi said the task team had worked since 2018 on hundreds of cases, and that dozens of guns had been proven by ballistics to be linked to political cases. If such a team can be sidelined, many citizens ask, what prevents a smaller, local cover-up elsewhere? This is why his briefing has been seen as a key to understanding why some people say the Hennops story may be more than a crash. In their minds, the system he described creates the conditions where a planned dump could happen and a quick accident story could follow. These are beliefs, not findings. But they are powerful in a country where many have seen strange cases fade without closure. Today, the case sits at a crossroads between 2 stories. One story says a fast, rain-soaked night, a mistake, and a cruel river took 3 lives. Another story says 3 constables tied to an operation that hurts powerful interests were removed, and a river was used to hide the truth. In between those stories are the facts we already have: the last pings near Shell Ultra City, the CCTV near Bloemfontein, the 24-hour station questions, the lack of clear barrier damage, the flattened bonnet, the debris found downstream, the EMS work to cut through strainers, the exact spot where the car was found, the 2 extra bodies that were not part of their trip, and the slow pace of official answers months later. Only a full forensic report can settle the path of the car, the speed at entry, the belt status, the injuries, and the times. Only a transparent release can repair trust. Until then, the river still holds the last minutes of a journey that began in duty and ended in loss. The families have buried their children. The province has honored its officers. The country has listened to a celebrated brave general who said the police can be captured and who named those he says tried to stop the work of National Task Team. And South Africa is left with the same question that opened this story: were these young officers killed and dumped because of Operation Vala Umgodi? Or did they meet an accident that looks strange only because so much around it is unsettled? Share your view in the comments. Do you believe this case is an accident or a cover-up, and which single detail in this story most strongly shapes your conclusion? Thanks for watching this news bulletin. Please share your opinion in the comments section. We would be glad to read and respond to your comments. Let's meet again tomorrow in our next strange story. Have a fantastic Friday and get ready for the weekend.